On the night of June 10, 2025, the death chamber at Florida State Prison in Stark fell silent. At 6:22 p.m., corrections officials pronounced Anthony Floyd Wainwright dead by lethal injection. He was 54 years old. His execution closed the book on a crime that had haunted Florida for more than 30 years. But to understand how this moment came to be, we need to go back to the spring of 1994, to a young mother named Carmen Gayheart, and to two desperate men who escaped from prison with violence in their hearts. Carmen Gabriella Gayheart was just 23 years old. A mother of two little boys, a nursing student, and the kind of young woman who seemed to bring light into every room. Friends remembered her as hardworking, funny, and deeply caring. She had her entire future in front of her. Before we continue, if you're interested in true crime stories told with facts, detail, and respect for the victims, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our upcoming cases. On April 27, 1994, Carmen stopped at a Winn-Dixie supermarket in Lake City, Florida. She picked up groceries, loaded them into her white Ford Bronco, and prepared to head home. But she never made it back. 2 days earlier, nearly 500 miles away in Newport, North Carolina, two inmates at the Carteret Correctional Center staged a daring escape. Anthony Floyd Wainwright, born in 1970, was serving a 10-year sentence for burglary. His background would later be scrutinized in court filings. His lawyers would argue that he struggled with cognitive impairments, possibly linked to his father's exposure to Agent Orange during the Vietnam War. Richard Hamilton, born in 1963, was serving a 25-year sentence for armed robbery. Testimony later revealed a chaotic childhood marked by dysfunction, poverty, and trauma, including an accident where he was shot in the eye with a BB gun as a boy. On April 25, 1994, the pair slipped out of Carteret Correctional, stole a Cadillac, and hit the road. Along the way, they burglarized a home, stealing firearms and money. Their aim was freedom, but they left a trail of crime in their path. By April 27th, the fugitives had reached Lake City, Florida. They spotted Carmen as she loaded her groceries. At gunpoint, Richard Hamilton forced her into her Bronco. Wainwright followed in the stolen Cadillac. Together, they drove her north on I-75, leaving the bustle of Lake City behind and heading toward the woods of Hamilton County. There, in a secluded spot, the horror unfolded. The two men took Carmen into the back seat. She was sexually assaulted, strangled, and finally shot twice in the back of the head. Her body was dragged several yards into the woods and left there. Then, the two fugitives fled in her vehicle. When Carmen didn't pick up her children from daycare, her family knew something was terribly wrong. Her husband and father reported her missing. Friends and classmates in her nursing program joined in the search. 2 days passed. Then came a break. In Mississippi, State Trooper John Wayne Leggett spotted the men in Carmen's Bronco. When he attempted to pull them over, the fugitives opened fire. A gun battle broke out along the roadside. Both Hamilton and Wainwright were wounded and captured alive. Trooper Leggett's bravery would later earn him the title of Trooper of the Year, a Medal of Valor, and recognition as one of America's top cops in 1994. With the men in custody, investigators turned their focus back to Florida. Where was Carmen? During interrogation, Hamilton confessed. He even sketched a crude map of where they had left Carmen's body. On May 2, 1994, deputies followed his directions into the woods of Hamilton County. There, they discovered her remains. The medical examiner confirmed she had been raped, strangled, and shot. Several teeth were missing. Her hyoid bone, a small bone in the throat often broken in strangulation, was gone as well. A second search recovered the missing evidence. It was a brutal confirmation of what investigators already feared. Carmen had suffered a violent, pitiless death. In July 1994, a grand jury indicted both men on multiple charges: first-degree murder, sexual battery, kidnapping, and robbery. Prosecutors announced they would seek the death penalty. Because of the intense media attention in Hamilton County, the trials were moved to Clay County. Authorities considered the defendants dangerous and a high escape risk. Intelligence suggested they were plotting another breakout, possibly even to kill a corrections officer. As a result, both Hamilton and Wainwright were placed under maximum security confinement. In court, they appeared wearing concealed stun belts. In May 1995, the trials began. Separate juries heard the cases. The evidence was overwhelming: eyewitness testimony, physical evidence, and Hamilton's own confession. Both men were convicted on all charges. On May 30, 1995, their juries recommended death sentences. Wainwright's jury was unanimous. Hamilton's vote was 10-2. On June 12, 1995, Judge Vernon Douglas imposed the ultimate punishment: death plus 3 consecutive life sentences for the additional crimes. He described the murder as wicked, evil, and vile, pitiless, and unnecessarily torturous. The convictions were just the beginning of a decades-long legal battle. Richard Hamilton filed multiple appeals in 1997, 2004, 2017, and 2018, all rejected. He remained on death row until January 2023, when he died in prison of natural causes at the age of 59. He never faced execution. Anthony Floyd Wainwright also filed appeal after appeal. His legal team argued that the trial had been flawed, jurors had received improper instructions, evidence had been withheld, and unreliable informants had testified. They claimed he suffered from intellectual disabilities. They even argued his father's exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam had left him neurologically impaired. But time and again, state and federal courts rejected these arguments. The Florida Supreme Court and, eventually, the U.S. Supreme Court both denied relief. On May 9, 2025, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed Wainwright's death warrant. It was his 9th such warrant since taking office. Wainwright's attorneys filed one final appeal, arguing about attorney access and due process, but it was denied. On the very day of the execution, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to intervene. On June 10, 2025, the end arrived. Wainwright declined a special last meal. His only visitors were his fiancée and his spiritual advisor. At 6 p.m., witnesses were brought into the death chamber viewing room. Wainwright made a final statement, though witnesses said it was unintelligible from behind the glass. His spiritual advisor later released a written message expressing gratitude to supporters and criticizing systemic injustice in capital punishment. At 6:22 p.m., the drugs took effect. Wainwright was pronounced dead. In the viewing room sat Maria David, Carmen's sister. She and her family wore shirts that read, "Justice for Carmen Gayheart." After the execution, Maria told reporters she finally felt lighter. that after more than 30 years, she could close the book on this legal chapter. Friends and neighbors remembered Carmen as a vibrant young woman with a bright future, stolen far too soon. "We all hold a piece of Carmen in our hearts," one said. "She was a beautiful soul." The murder of Carmen Gayheart was shocking in its cruelty. Two men, desperate after a prison escape, chose violence over mercy and destroyed a young family's future. For 3 decades, appeals and delays dragged the case through the courts. One man died of natural causes. The other was finally executed. But for Carmen's family, the story isn't about legal battles or execution methods. It's about a young mother whose life was cut short, and about justice delayed but never denied.